Alright, so the Eagles just got some big news in the late stages of training camp, as not only did we just get our first official look at John Metchie since he was traded to Philly, as it seems there's already reason to be excited about what he can add to the Birds offense, but we also got some big injury news on a few important players, including an update that has the potential to completely change everything at one key position. Plus, we also got some big updates in the Birds cornerback battle, while Philly's best story at training camp looks like he's about to make the roster. So let's talk about that and all the other latest news from Eagles camp starting right now. Alright, so Philadelphia Eagles training camp is winding to a close, as after today, the Birds only have one more practice at camp remaining in the lead up to their final preseason game against the Jets on Friday. And that means that time is running out, not only to figure out who's actually going to make the final roster and practice squad, but also for several of the Birds' big training camp positional battles to be decided. And headed into Tuesday's practice, there were obviously three big ones to pay attention to. I mean, first off, you obviously got the one at linebacker between Jahad Campbell and Jeremiah Trotter Jr., which, by the way, I think both those guys are very exciting options and would feel confident in either one of them if they were to start. And then you got the battle at safety between Sidney Brown and Andrew Mukuba, which personally, I definitely have my concerns here, but I also think there's a lot to like about both these candidates. I mean, obviously, Mukuba just balled out with the pick six and fumble recovery in the Birds' last preseason game, while Sid flashed in both preseason games and has had a solid overall camp. But then lastly, you got the battle at the cornerback position, and out of all the positional battles that the Birds have had going on during training camp, I think it's pretty safe to say that this one has easily been the most concerning. Because like I pointed out in my last video, nobody's really stood out amongst the pack. Now, things do seem to be looking up just a bit due to the emergence of the new addition Jacorian Bennett, as he balled out and was easily Philly's best corner in their last preseason game. So if Bennett continues to trend in that direction that he's trending, he could possibly end up as the starter by the time week one rolls around. So it's nice to finally have some positivity there. That said, that is a big if, and truthfully, we still do not know how this battle at corner is going to play out. And as much hype has been surrounding Bennett recently, someone who has lost all the hype surrounding them is the original favorite to win this job in Kelee Ringo. And ahead of Tuesday's practice, it seemed as if he was losing any hope of actually winning the starting job. Because, as Victor Williams pointed out, Ringo didn't get any run with the first team on Monday. He did end up getting snaps with the third team at one point, and the rookie Mac McWilliams even got first-team reps over him. Not to mention that Ringo got beat on back-to-back plays against undrafted wide receiver Darius Cooper. And, honestly, just looking at it, it's all really unfortunate because Ringo's a guy who was obviously very good in college. He has some crazy physical tools and awesome athletic ability, so he has all the potential in the world to be a good player, but potential only gets you so far, and for whatever reason, this summer, Kelee Ringo just has not been able to put it all together, and on the contrary, he has really struggled at times. So, we'll see how it all plays out, but unfortunately, things just are not looking very good for Kelee Ringo right now. And that's even more true after Tuesday's practice, as once again, it was Adoree Jackson getting the start opposite Quinyon Mitchell over Kelee Ringo. So, again, Ringo very much does seem to be falling out of the race, while Jackson and Bennett are trending up. But moving on, Tuesday's practice was apparently one of the longest practices in all of Eagles training camp, so we got plenty of storylines to talk about, so we'll start with some big injury updates regarding a few key players. As for starters, we had some new additions to the injury report on Tuesday, those including Tanner McKee, who was out with a finger injury, Jordan Mailata, who missed practice with a concussion, DeVonta Smith, who missed practice with a groin injury, and Dallas Goedert, who was limited also with a groin injury. So, obviously, those are all very important players, so the fact that they're dealing with these injuries is very noteworthy, but I'm also not going to be too worried about it because it doesn't seem like any of these injuries are too serious, and they're not going to cause these guys to miss any actual games, so that's definitely good. And I also do have to wonder if in Smitty and Goedert's case specifically, if the training staff was just being a little cautious because Tuesday's practice was so long, but, I'll make sure to keep you guys updated on these injuries if anything new comes out. And then on top of that, A.J. Brown missed practice once again as he continues to take his time coming back from that hamstring injury. But again, it really does seem like they're just being cautious with him and trying not to rush him back too early.
I mean, he's doing a lot of stuff mentally to kind of, stay obviously sharp and make sure he's good with his game and things like that. And really it's up to him and the trainers. Whenever they're ready to cut him loose, I think they'll cut him loose. So I know he's staying active within us. staying his mind in the playbook and everything with what we're doing. So I think whenever they feel like he's ready to go, we'll get him back.
Yeah, I mean, at this current moment, I'm just not really at all worried about A.J. Brown's hamstring injury, and I fully expect him to be at full strength and ready for week 1, but if we get any new information, I'll make sure to keep you guys updated. And that being said, with both A.J. and DeVonta being out, the Eagles' starting receiver group for Tuesday's practice was definitely a little interesting, as it was Jahan Dotson, Darius Cooper, and Johnny Wilson starting out the day with the first team. And there's a couple things I want to talk about here. So we'll start with Wilson, who not too long into practice sustained some sort of lower leg injury, it seemed like, as he was rolled up on by Brett Toth while he was blocking somebody, and apparently it didn't look too good. And he limped off the field and went into the medical tent before he was eventually carted back inside. And, obviously that's a little scary anytime someone gets carted off the field. So hopefully he's okay and it's nothing too serious, because Wilson's apparently had a very good training camp. He obviously had a very good showing in the Birds' first preseason game against the Bengals, and he even earned the praises of running back Will Shipley when asked by reporters to name one player who he thinks is going to have a great season.
It's a great question. I'd say Johnny Wilson. I think he's just done a tremendous job of going out there and showing what he's capable of, getting the opportunities that he has, and just taking advantage of them. He's really put his head down and started working. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what he's able to do this year.
Yeah, so it's definitely awesome to hear Shipley praise Johnny Wilson like that. I mean, it's exciting that the 6'6" wide receiver has had as good of a camp as he's had, and also just hopefully those comments from Shipley after practice are possibly a hint that Wilson's injury isn't too bad and he shouldn't miss too much time. I'm sure we'll get more information on that over these next few days. And also, speaking of injuries, rookie safety Andrew Mukuba also unfortunately suffered one on Tuesday as well. And it could change everything in regards to the battle at safety, as after a 1v1 rep, Mukuba came up limping and was grabbing at his left hamstring, and he tried to continue practicing after that, but he just ultimately couldn't and ended up going inside with the trainer. So, I'd say this is pretty significant, as like we've seen with A.J. Brown, hamstring is one of those injuries that can linger on for a while. So there's a chance that Mukuba could miss significant time, and depending on the severity of it, maybe even be out for the start of the regular season, meaning that Sidney Brown would then by default win the starting job, barring another outside acquisition. But even if Mukuba isn't out that long and he just misses, say, a week, 2 weeks, I still think that could cost him the starting job, because let's not forget, Mukuba had already missed time earlier in camp with a shoulder injury, while Sidney Brown has been out there the entire summer. So again, this injury could be a very big deal for Mukuba, and potentially very costly, as he's trying to win the starting job at safety. But now, circling back to the receivers, I wanted to touch on one of Tuesday's other starters in the undrafted rookie Darius Cooper, as Tuesday potentially provided a very big update on his status in terms of making the roster. As in my opinion, it's very significant that Cooper was getting those first team reps over Ainias Smith. As after the Birds trade for John Metchie, I have said that I think it's Cooper and Smith competing for that last receiver spot on the roster. So again, the fact that he started out at receiver with AJ and DeVonta out, I think is very significant and potentially shows that Cooper's already maybe even made this team. And reporter Elliot Shore-Parks seems to agree with that, as he said, quote, "One main takeaway from today seems like Darius Cooper has made the team. Yes, there are injuries, but he is getting a ton of first team reps and getting the ball thrown his way." So, obviously we won't know for sure until roster cutdown day, but Tuesday was certainly a very encouraging sign for Darius Cooper's chances of making this team. But now, moving on, Tuesday was also a big day because it was wide receiver John Metchie's very first practice as a member of the Philadelphia Eagles after being traded here just a couple days ago on Sunday. As you can see him here getting out on the field, then talking to his former teammate at Alabama and now current teammate in DeVonta Smith, and also going through several wide receiver drills and catching some passes on the sideline, among other things, while also catching a pass from Nick Sirianni. And then later in the team portion of practice, Metchie got second team reps at wide receiver, as of course he just got here and is just trying to get started and get adjusted to things. And he also made a nice play, gaining about 15 yards up the seam on a reception from Kyle McCord over the middle. So overall, it was just definitely good to see Metchie out on the field for the first time as an Eagle. And even though he's likely just the Birds' fourth receiver at this point, I am still excited and curious to see what he can add to this Eagles offense.
Yeah, I think anytime you can add a player like him to the room, just create more competition, it's great for the rest of the team. Howie does a really good job of just adding good players and adding depth. So I remember watching him, coming out of college, doing a lot of work on him. And then just kind of from since he's been in the league, just his ability to play different positions. He can move around. He's done a good job. He's had some injuries early on, but worked through those, and he's looked pretty good so far this past year. So excited to see what he can do today, especially.
What do you see in the opportunity here in Philly?
Really, I'm just trying to bring something to the table, try and contribute to a team that's already so good. All those other things I don't have any control over. All I really have control is how I show up every day,
What do you think you bring to the table, or what do you think you'll bring to this offense?
I think just being dynamic. It's such a dynamic offense already. Through and through, receivers and the whole offense, I just think being dynamic, guys that can kind of run all routes and things like that.
I am certainly intrigued by Metchie's skill set, just having the speed, versatility, and route running ability that he does. And again, whether it's adding depth, helping on special teams, or even if he's forced to play a more prominent role in the offense at some point this season, I'm just really excited to see what he's able to add. Moving on though, we got to talk about Jalen Hurts in the offense, as overall, it definitely wasn't a great day for them just with all the injuries that they were dealing with, as the defense won the day in the majority of situations, but that said, Jalen Hurts' numbers weren't terrible, as he went 18 for 24 with 2 touchdowns and 1 interception, those 2 touchdowns being one to E.J. Jenkins from about 10 yards out, and another on a shovel pass, and the interception was pretty bad, as he apparently threw it right to Nolan Smith while trying to get it to Saquon Barkley, so that's not great to hear, but also, you could look at it from the other side and see it as a positive, and say it's just really nice to see Nolan Smith come away with an interception and make a play like that. So, overall, again, as I've been saying all training camp long, you really can't read too much into these training camp numbers, especially for Jalen Hurts, good or bad. But that said, you guys know that I'm going to be covering everything from the Eagles' last practice at training camp, as well as their final preseason game against the Jets on Friday, and also just everything else in the lead up to the start of the regular season. So if you don't want to miss any of that, then make sure you guys subscribe and you turn on notifications, because again, trust me, you're not going to want to miss anything. And also leave a like down below, because it really does help me out a ton, guys. Let's see if we can get to at least 500 likes on today's video. That would be greatly appreciated. And also leave a comment down below just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. Just how significant do you think Andrew Mukuba's injury is going to end up being? What are your first impressions of John Metchie? Just again, let me know all your thoughts down in the comments. And also, if you want to watch another Eagles video going over some other news from camp, you can check this out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.